Well, here we are. Welcome to it. It is the NAIA football podcast, video cast. I don't know what we call this. I'm Jason Dannelly, and of course, I love NAIA football. That's why we're here. I don't like formal intros and doing that whole thing, so I'm just going to bring Pat in right away. Pat, how's it going, man?
Jason, it's good to see you, buddy.
Man, we look a lot older from now compared to the first time that we started hanging out and met one another.
It's been a few years. The white beard looks good, buddy. I'm telling you, it looks got a great look going on there.
It's coming in. I look distinguished, and if people that know me, they know that's absolutely false. But it just kind of it brings it in, and it takes away from the receding hairline I've got up top. People focus more on the beard then.
No, you're looking good, man. You're looking good. It's good to see you. And this is a cool deal, man. I was really excited when you called me and to do something like this and from a former coach at this level and talking football, there's only one person to do a podcast. It's Jason Dannelly. So you are the authority of NAIA football and NAIA in general. And, what a cool thing, and just honored to be brought along here and trying this thing out, man.
Well, and you and I were kind of talking backstage, whatever you want to call it, before. And, I went away for 10 years, really, from public NAIA football stuff. I still wrote some articles here and there, but kind of stepped away. But what I want people to understand is there's a couple different reasons for that. And one was just new life, new career. And I needed to focus as much of my time possible into learning that, because now my real job is in the world of, agricultural equipment sales, basically. And even though I grew up a farm kid, you still got a lot to learn. And then just life. A couple years ago, I was actually going to start this up again, get after it. And then COVID hit. And then we had like half a season. I was screwing around. I'm like, I'm not going to mess with this. So it was not a fun year. I'm sure, as you could probably attest to, a couple years ago when we were going shortened seasons and half game. I mean, it was insane.
At this level of football, being a coach at that time, Jason, it was the most miserable year and a half, whatever it was, 18 months I ever experienced. And again, the unknown of playing games, and you're practicing, you're in camp, you're in the winter months in camp thinking like, hey, we have a season scheduled, but is it going to happen? It was crazy. Of course, being in the northern part of the Midwest, weather was really fun in January, and snow blowing fields for practices. You could do a whole podcast probably on the challenges of NAIA football and coaches and the things they have to do to commit to being a football coach at this level. But yeah, I could tell some stories on that. That's probably a whole podcast in itself. Yeah. A COVID episode, Jay. It'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah. When we get in the off season, we'll do something on that.
Oh man, we'll get some funny ones.
I need to introduce you. People might be like, okay, so Jason, you're like the NAIA guy. Who's this? Well, Pat Donley, former offensive. Well, hold on. I think I've actually got something here. Let's see if this works.
There's no.
There. Look at that dapper individual.
Oh, hair's not bad. The beard looks way better, though, with my chubby face. It's terrible.
Well, that was the other reason for me growing a beard. Just
absolutely. Yeah, it just hides a lot, man. It's the same way, buddy. I'm right there with
you. Won a national championship with the University of St. Francis.
2, actually, 16 and 17.
2. Yeah, that's right.
I got to throw that in there. Don't shortchange us, buddy. Back 16, 17. Yeah, it was a heck of a run, man. It was a lot of fun.
Won a couple Coordinator of the Year awards. Hockey dad. That's probably the most important thing right now.
My new role, certainly. Yeah. Doing that yesterday and today. It's the hockey dad.
Nice. Very nice. And of course, you're one of the few people that is in this world that can actually, put up with me. So that's the other reason why you're on this podcast.
We go way back, man. It's I've been a lifelong NAIA guy with my dad being Kevin Donley, the football coach of St. Francis, and being around this. He was coach of Georgetown in my youth. So we've been around, this level of football. I've been around it my entire life and been able to coach it. Was involved in for 18 years as a coach, and as a son for almost 43 years. So it's been a great run, and obviously experienced quite a few things at this level.
Well, we first met probably 2003, maybe 2004. I can't remember if we met before the run down at the national championship in Savannah, Tennessee, and your love for catfish started then. I know that.
I lived in Kentucky as a kid, But yeah, I never acquired the palate for catfish, unfortunately. But yeah, you think of
So
bacon,
that's what,
he eats anything, right? Well,
yeah.
catfish is one thing I don't eat. So
Well, that's who Pat is. That's who I am. These are the formalities. I have no idea what we're actually going to call this podcast right now. It's just VSN Live and AI football.
Donley and Danley. I don't know.
Two dumb D's. I don't know. There's that. But the idea is basically recap what's happening in the world of NAIA football for this last week. Maybe look ahead a little bit, go through a few things, and just see what comes up in conversation. And that's I guess maybe the way to, maybe that's the way we go with it. Just start talking about what happened this last weekend.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Why not? So that slides up too soon. So we'll just clip all the way back here to the very beginning of what we want to talk about. And of course I clicked way too far. My mouse is now going crazy. There we go. Look at that graphic. God, that's beautiful. Okay. So top 25 this weekend, not a lot of upsets, and really probably the biggest featured game was Marion and Concordia, and Marion able to pull out a 14-7 victory. In that game, we had Friends upset Southwestern, a top 10 team, and then Bethel was playing Roosevelt, who was receiving votes. Bethel won that game big. We'll get into all those here, in just a little bit. But really, the top teams, Northwestern, Grandview, Morningside, all handled their opponents. Indiana Wesleyan, a little bit of a slow start against Madonna. I don't know if you checked out any of that game or saw any of the stats on that one, Pat.
Really surprising score. I mean, Wesleyan's a really, really strong football program, and ever since they've started, they've been very, very, a quality football team, and I don't think Madonna's ever won a game at this level at this point since the program started back during COVID. Heck of a time to start. Football for those guys. You feel bad for them. They start the program, have a plan, and COVID hits. So they've struggled, I know, and it's really kind of the most surprising score, honestly, Jason, is that one to me, because I know the team that Wesleyan has. So that was kind of a head scratcher for me. Didn't get a chance to see that one, but did watch the Marion Concordia game. And it was a weather game. I think both teams are really strong defensively, and you add driving rain and high winds all day. It was really a challenge for the offenses to get much going there. But two really good defensive teams, and I think the Mid-States East is very, very strong and very deep. With Indiana Wesleyan, Marion and Concordia, those two teams that went head to head yesterday. And St. Francis Cougars are coming along here, 4-2 now, won 4 straight, with a big matchup coming up here with Marion next week in Indianapolis. So it's a good level, good division on that side of the East, in the Mid-States East.
Well, and I was looking at that too, and to be honest, and no offense to where you were and your family, but I kind of saw the first. Getting straightened up here. I kind of saw the first 2 losses of the year, and then put it out of the back of my mind. But then looking at the standings this week, sitting at 4-2, and the games they have in front of them, USF still controls their destiny, as does Indiana Wesleyan and Marion, because none of those teams have gone up against or have had the opportunity to beat one another up and screw up the rankings in that league.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, the top teams in that division have not played one another until this game yesterday with Marion Concordia. So, yeah, there's a lot to be to unfold there in the next few weeks here of that side of the conference for sure.
We've actually got a highlight to look at. As you saw, Keegan LaBelle, 15 carries, 126 yards. We've got the second score that he ran in here, just a little scamper from about 30 yards out, and got the angle at the end here and just squeaked himself into the end zone. I mean, good run. And turns out, he scored that with about, 13:30 there left in the first half. That was the last time they got on the board. And like you said, real struggle offensively due to, the weather conditions and everything else there.
Yeah, I think Coach Karras and the Knights there found a little player there with LaBelle, sophomore. Knew of him, recruited him a little bit my last year at St. Francis, and decided to stay home. He's an Indianapolis kid, really undersized guy, but he's a little force, man. Not an overly large guy. You can see he's kind of an undersized player, but physical and runs pretty well. Hits the hole with conviction. You can see a lot of things in that clip, being a prime example of that. You see that throughout the game. It was their leading rusher and a guy that they relied on. In those weather conditions, they had to run the football. I mean, there's just nothing taking the ball down the field for both teams. So it was kind of one of those field position, ball control, let the defenses carry each team through the game. And it came down to, I think it looked like getting through the fourth quarter, that Concordia had a chance to go tie it with a 2-minute situation, and good defense again by Marion, turn them over on downs, get the ball back, and essentially bleeding the clock out at the end.
Yeah, solid game, for Marion in the first half. Like you said, bleed it out there and come away with the win. This Concordia team, don't count them out. They still obviously have a shot, to make the postseason. There's a lot of season left to be played, and they had a big win a couple weeks ago against I would say a mid-level Division II school in Wayne State. Wayne State is not lighting it up in terms of what they're doing in Division II, but still, you're dealing with the opportunity for 36 scholarships, bigger league, bigger budgets. It was a good win for Concordia.
Trivia, Jason, who's the head football coach at Wayne State, first-year guy.
Oh,
Michigan Wolverine.
Oh, that's right. It's I saw it. Gosh dang. Tyrone Wheatley. That's right.
First year there.
Right.
Yeah, it's a big school right in the heart of Detroit. So that's a big win. Anytime, a team at our level compete at Division II, no matter where they are in the standings, is it's a feather in your cap. And Concordia certainly did that. They're a well-coached football team. Those guys do a great job with what they have there, being in the backyard of the University of Michigan and kind of carving their own niche of who they are. And again, they play extremely hard and do a great job with their coaching staff. And they were always a challenge for us, when I was coaching against them. So that was a good game yesterday. Again, two great defenses going head to head.
Move on to another big game. And on paper, I had put it as a game definitely to watch in the KCAC between Southwestern and Friends. Knew coming into this game, Friends was going to run the football. They're a run-first team, priority run team. They hardly throw the ball whatsoever. And Friends actually came out in this game, as you can see. They got the 12-0 lead early and then just kept putting it on Southwestern. Ended up with a 35-20 win. The KCAC, for what it has been through the years, has never been a league that I think nationally gets looked at as a big power. But there's some pretty solid teams in this league. And Friends just kind of upset the apple cart this last week because a lot of people, I think, were looking at Southwestern as being the team to beat in that half of the league. And now, Friends is going to be right there in the picture. And I would imagine the coaches will put them in the top 25 this week. They've only got one loss, and that was early in the season to Kansas Wesleyan.
Yeah, you would assume they would receive some votes, certainly. But yeah, they're, looking at the clips there, Jay, I mean, they're a triple option team and really good at running that system and seem to be a force on the ground and really controlled the game.
Yeah, and we got a clip here we'll watch a couple times, but this is their quarterback Cavante Baker, who was able to put one in for them early on in the second quarter. You can see 13:06 left to play, and just a little scamper from 21 yards out, kind of a little reverse option look before he turns it upfield and gets his way into the end zone here. And Friends is a team that just runs the football, and they've had success doing it. But their efficiency in the passing game is not to be doubted. 4 for 4, 119 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, it's not a bad day for your quarterback there either.
With that system, it's so hard, from a coaching standpoint of trying to mimic it in practice to prepare your defense. Especially at the efficiency and I'm sure the speed that Friends can run that system with. You can't duplicate that and get your defense ready for it. And obviously it's assignment-based football, so you have to be incredibly detailed in how you're supporting everything from line of scrimmage second level to your third level, supporting the pitch phase and things like that when it comes to the option game. And like you said, then having that complementary passing game. So now you have those run support safeties, helping in the run game. Now you throw a ball over their head. I'm assuming that's what would probably happen in those situations, being so efficient 4 for 4 for big plays.
Yeah, if you look at – go right ahead, sir. No,
it's a difficult thing to defend. I mean, there's a lot going on there. If you can run that system and run it efficiently in a running quarterback like we see there with Baker, that's a nightmare for a defense.
Yeah. Coach Harrison has done a really nice job coming into Friends and turning the program back into a winner here. And like we said, probably going to see them in the top 25 this week. So Moving on to some of the other games that happened this weekend in the NAIA, one that we also kept our eye on for a couple reasons here. First being Roosevelt last week went and upset the University of St. Francis, Illinois, who was in the top 25, and that was a nice win for Roosevelt. And Bethel last week loses to Georgetown. So you kind of have the same situation where St. Francis 2 weeks ago was coming off a loss to St. Xavier. Roosevelt put it to them. Bethel coming off of a loss to Georgetown. Roosevelt's got a chance to go on the road to get the upset, and they absolutely did not. Bethel dominated this game.
Yeah, that's a tough trip for one. I mean, I think that's probably part of the challenge. And it's good to see Bethel back and relevant once again. I mean, it's been a great program over the years. It's in obviously the southeast part of the world where there's great recruiting and talent there. A bit of a surprising score, but I can tell you right now from my past history with Bethel University or Bethel College, I guess they got players. They have players, and they are a bear to deal with. And it sounds like they are getting it going again here for sure.
I'm sure you probably remember the quarterback that you guys went up against a couple years ago in the NAIA Championship Series, who gave you fits. I believe he actually broke his teeth off in that game. Brett Dearman.
Dearman now at North Alabama, I believe, right? He's kind of bounced around. Was the OC at Kansas for all. Yeah, he's had a great coaching career since playing at Bethel College. You're right, Jay. I think were you at that game? I can't remember in Fort Wayne.
I don't believe I was there. I think that was one of those games that I ended up, just kind of watching on the internet. And man,
2006. Brett was a fierce competitor and got hit and spit his teeth out literally. I mean, it was insane. They went back into the game and finished the game, and we were fortunate enough to pull a 2-minute drive off and win it. With a handful of seconds left in the game and that type of thing. It was one of the better football games I've ever been a part of. We had multiple, with Bethel College back in those, mid 2000s. It's good to see them back, and you're seeing some blue bloods coming back in the NAIA. Jay, it's been a couple of years for some of these teams, and I think teams like Bethel and Georgetown College in Kentucky and Carroll College in Montana, when they're good and relevant and competing at the national level, it makes this level of football better. It makes the NAIA.
It does. I love to see it. You like to see, the teams that have got name recognition. And then you like to see some of these teams that have kind of come up out of nowhere and really built up nice programs. Some of the new ones that have even come to the scene in the last, 10, 15 years to commit to having a solid program. And as you know, funding is everything. And support from the institution is everything. And if you start an NAIA football program and you're not getting the funding, you're not getting the support, then you're going to struggle. And it's nice to see some of the new teams come in and do that. Roosevelt University, obviously being one of those. Obviously, they're heading off into Division II. They're already a preemptive member, whatever we want to call that, provisional member.
Provisional, yeah.
Yep, and obviously the absorption of Robert Morris helps them get their football program going. So a lot of, like you said, blue bloods coming back and some up and coming exciting teams out there too. So moving onward, that's kind of it for our featured games. There was a lot of just pretty solid football played over the weekend. A lot of blowouts. A game that I kind of watched a little bit of was St. Thomas and Florida Memorial. St. Thomas wins that game. I expected that to be just an absolute shootout. Florida Memorial was average about 47 points a game. They run the ball all over the place. They had like 762 yards of total offense 2 weeks ago. Didn't happen. They ended up losing to St. Thomas 31-17 there. And then, just kind of rolling through some of the other, scores here from this last weekend. St. Francis, Illinois bounces back. They get a nice win over Judson there. Lindsey Wilson, still staying on top. Lindsey Wilson is a team, and I don't know how much you followed it, Pat. They never just go out and like have these 72-0 wins, but they just win consistently. Like 35-14 isn't a sexy win, but it's a win, and they are one of the highest rated teams in the NAIA because of it.
Ever since that program started, I mean, that's a winning football team, a winning culture down there. And Coach Oliver, started the program there. Oh, was it 16, 17 years ago? Probably at this point. It's been a while. And things since he's moved on to Georgetown, it's continued. And that's a desolate part of the world. I mean, you guys specifically be going to Lindsey Wilson College to go there, and it's they do a great job. Nice facility there. And they've been a successful program from the jump. So good to see him keep that winning tradition going.
Yep, of course, Coach Oliver, at Georgetown now. They get a nice victory over Cumberland last week in 42-14. Your history through the years goes back with Coach Oliver to his Ohio Dominican days when he was there as, I think he was the offensive coordinator there under Dale Carlson when that program got started.
Yeah, I've known Chris since we were in high school. We're the same age. His brother was actually our original SID at St. Francis, and he goes even back before that. It's crazy. Yeah, then we played against one another when he was at ODU, and go way back, and played him once down at Lindsey Wilson in the playoffs back in 2019. So, good to see him going back to my dad's old school, Georgetown College in Kentucky, and taking over for basically my second dad, Coach Cronin, when he retired. So it's happy to see Chris go there and keeping the tradition of that tremendous program going on.
Baker gets a big win over the weekend over Mid-American Nazarene. This was a game that, we had featured, but they just absolutely, put it to the Pioneers, got a win there. And we'll talk a little bit more about Baker here in a little bit once we get into kind of some of the postseason looks. The rest of the NAIA schedule, Graceland is a team that started off, really hot. They were looking really good early. I believe it was 3-0. Pat Ross, former Lindenwood head coach, is at Graceland now. That team puts up a lot of points. They've got a lot of offense, but they've had kind of their woes here recently, and showing that maybe some youth in their team still got quite a bit to learn there.
Seems like a lot of parity out in the Plains region, just in general. Seems like it's kind of back and forth, like you said. Grayson started out with and kind of hit a snag here, and there's a lot of good football teams out there competing, for those conference races. It's good to see.
Yeah, you just look at the Hart North, Hart South, KCAC's two divisions, the Bissell and the Kessinger, the GPAC. I mean, right through, kind of the heart of the Midwest. A lot of really good football, being played. Evangel is a team that was in the Heart of America or Hart Conference. I still call it Heart of America. I think they're officially the Hart Conference now. I don't know. But Evangel moves from the Hart, goes to the KCAC, playing in their first season in the KCAC. They're undefeated. They beat Bethany. Bethany's head coach, former Baker head coach, Mike Grossner. So I would expect to see Bethany improve in the coming years. But right now, Evangel, one of those hot teams in the NAIA.
Absolutely. Yeah, Coach Grossner did a great job at Baker, and expect great things there with Bethany. It'll be interesting to see over the next couple of years.
Montana Western gets a win over Rocky. Union pulls out one against Point late in that game. And, just kind of getting through some of the rest of the scores here as we get into the meat and potatoes. Ottawa, Arizona, kind of laid one on Arkansas Baptist here over the weekend, 83-0. So that kind of gets us to something that everybody kind of starts talking more and more about this time of year, and that's the NAIA Championship Series and how teams are actually going to qualify. And it's a little bit different this year. When you were coaching, Pat, it was 16 teams. It was conference winners. You had to be rated in the top 20. We've expanded to 20 now, and every conference champion will be represented. Yeah, whatever. Will be represented in the playoffs. And if the playoffs started today, here's how that would look in those conferences. And like you said, you've got some blue bloods in there. You've got Carroll, you've got Northwestern, Benedictine, Grandview, but then you've got Evangel sneaking in there. You've got, Indiana Wesleyan, who has been a mainstay here of late, in there as well. I mean, they're a solid football program ever since they've started. They're still, I would still consider them vaguely new. I think you got to get to year 15 of having success before I'm saying, you're a blue blood in there. And then you've got, a fairly new program in Texas Wesleyan, and also out of the Sun Conference there, Kaiser as well at 4-2. So those are, if the conference ended today, that's who the conference champions are. If multiple teams were undefeated, obviously I just put the higher rated team in there. And then your at-larges, of course, going to Morningside, Marion, College of Idaho, Georgetown. Now, once you get to that at-large number 5, Pat, you've got Southwestern in here. And here's two teams that lost this week. So it'll be interesting to see where they fall. And if one of those bubble teams has actually crept up in front of them, to get one of those final at-large spots. Montana Western is an at-large that's currently in there. A lot of teams from the Frontier potentially represented this year in the postseason. And I had mentioned Baker early in the program. Baker is 5-1. They've just got that one blemish this year, and they're in the half of the conference with Benedictine. And Benedictine right now is the higher rated team. They've got that opportunity for the auto, but when those two teams face off, that could easily flip-flop amongst the teams that could make it into the championship series.
Yeah, and you look at how many of these at-large teams will play, at this point, what you would consider the conference champions at this point in week 7 of the season. They're going to play head-to-head here the next few weeks. So it's going to get real interesting here these last 4 weeks of the regular season remaining before we actually get into the playoffs. So it's going to be really, really fun to see.
It's crazy to think how quick this season, and it happens every year. Every year we're like, 2-0, 1-0. Some team is 4-0 and somebody else is only 1-1 because the way the schedules work out. But now all of a sudden, here we are. We're mid-October, and the NAIA football season is almost 3/4 of the way done before we get into the championship series. So you really start seeing, the work that some of these teams put in the offseason to get them to where they are. And you also see maybe some benefiting from a lighter early schedule to get them those wins and get that confidence level built up. But regardless, man, like you said, we're the NAIA regular season is on the downhill slide right now.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, there's going to be tons and tons of great matchups here in the coming weeks. It'll be a lot of fun to see how it all shakes out.
So, I mean, that's the official business of the podcast or video cast or whatever we call this. I don't know. That's the official business. So now, I mean, we can just talk about whatever until,
Well, I think you got to give a shout out to former NAIA football coach Kalen DeBoer at Washington. That was awesome yesterday to see.
Yes, I was excited to see that. I would have. So I'll go ahead and let this out of the bag. Being the degenerate gambler that I am sometimes, Pat, I really would have liked to see a field goal kicked at the end of regulation there to tie things up, and then Washington go into overtime and win by 6 because I had them at 3.5. Happy for Kalen. Happy for the Huskies that they won the game, but I could have used that as the last leg of my parlay, and
yeah,
didn't happen, man.
You hear people, you root for folks, and but you're still hoping, the numbers, shake out in your favor when you get those bets in and all that. I hate losing, Jason, so much. So yeah, I don't pick up the phone and do the whole online gambling thing. It seems intriguing. It seems like fun. But the excitement of winning does not outweigh the misery of losing for me. I'm one of those people that I can't do it.
Definitely understand. So you had some run-ins, obviously, through the years with the University of Sioux Falls when Kalen was the head coach, and you meet certain coaches, and you're like, okay, yeah, that guy, if he wants to, he's got a chance to kind of move up and move on. And I think from the word go, the first time I met Kalen, I kind of thought that, and my mind was so NAIA warped at the time. It's like, oh, well, he'll take over for Bob Young, and then he'll be at the University of Sioux Falls for the next 30 years, never really thinking like, hey, the talent that this guy has as a coach, like the possibilities are endless, and we've seen that.
And I think he's around our age, Jason, maybe a year or two older than us. He's not much older than us if he is. I think, did he take over Sioux Falls at 31, something crazy years old?
Yeah.
I think he was the head guy in 08. We played them. Oh, no, excuse me. In 06 was his first year. I think we played in the national championship that year, and they beat us, by a score or whatever it was. But yeah, like you said, you could tell, very early on that he was different. Really happy for him and his successes. And UW up in the Northwest there has a gem and a guy that I think is going to be there for a really long time and be their next, great coach in that history of that program. And good to see. I mean, top 10 team, that's fantastic. And seeing that Michael Penix is a heck of a player too. He was in Indiana with Kalen when he was calling plays there at IU, and took him with him when he got the job out at Washington. So it was cool to see. But you definitely want to see those guys and former NAIA guys have success. Chuck Morrell's there too.
Yep.
I have nightmares of seeing that defense even at Washington yesterday because I had to go against that. Oh, goodness gracious. I still have nightmares of Chuck Morrell defense at Sioux Falls and even at Montana Tech as well, playing in the playoffs a few years when he was there as the head guy. So, yeah, I have nightmares looking at that defense for sure.
Yeah, he absolutely was a force to be reckoned with. Ryan Grubb, who was the offensive line coach, and I believe kind of co-OC towards the end there at the University of Sioux Falls, also out there. There's a bunch of Sioux Falls guys out there coaching for the University of Washington right now with NAIA ties. And I know some people are going, "Oh, Sioux Falls, they went Division II." All those guys were NAIA coaches, and
won championships at the NAIA level, and they were the gold standard of the NAIA there, as you know, you and I obviously both know, in the mid 2000s. They, them and Carroll College back and forth, and we were fortunate enough to compete against them a few times. But man, oh man, that was good football teams. And we can talk again a whole podcast of the history of the NAIA, even the last 20 years, and the great teams, and those guys certainly were at the top of the class there.
So we go back to how we kind of met and we got started, and you had mentioned before we got the podcast going that you and your wife were talking, that I was actually around-ish for your first, date-ish, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I think we met in, like you said, in 2003. So I started at St. Francis working for Dad in 2004. Went to the national title that year against Carroll College. And, of course, that was Savannah, Tennessee. All the pomp and circumstance the night before the game, to have the banquet, that type of thing. My wife's brother was our All-American defensive end. My now wife at the time, this girl I was, talking with. But our first date, actually, you were involved with. We were kind of talking back and forth, and took her out in Savannah, Tennessee that night. It was kind of our first official date. So it's kind of funny, almost 20 years later, and 2 kids and all that. So yeah, kind of a cool story, and a little NAIA story there. So
how horrible. And it haunts me to this day. How horrible was the smell from the paper mill at the Pickwick? Like, you'd step outside and the smell of the paper mill would just hit you in Savannah, Tennessee. And you're like, what is that?
It was interesting. Saw a lot of cool things there. There on the Tennessee River. Saw a black bear cub rolling around one time, just driving by there. I'm like, what? It's a bear. Yeah, you're out there it's a desolate part of the world. When you go to Nashville, Tennessee, then drive 2.5 hours south, it's like there's really not a whole lot there, but really pretty part of the world. And I'm a history buff. I love Shiloh. That was a lot of fun.
Shiloh was a lot of fun, but yeah, the 2.5 hour drive that you would take to get from either Nashville or Memphis, there was not a 4-lane road to be had.
Oh, no.
I mean, it was a lot of 2-lane roads, not a lot of shoulder. You're taking these roads sometimes dark at night, and you're going, what am I going to get into here?
Better like catfish, too. That was a staple. Grits, catfish, every meal. We'd instruct our players, like, guys, probably 3 straight nights of catfish in a row for every single meal, including breakfast, mind you, or brunch. It's like, guys, we got to kind of scale it back to fried foods. And, as good as it was, makes you ready to play a championship game here on Saturday.
Y'all want some breakfast hush puppies? What? I didn't even know that was a thing.
It's like catfish with gravy for breakfast. Like, holy moly. Yeah. And the sweet tea. Yeah. Sweet tea is a real thing.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
I mean, they definitely enjoyed their sweet tea. And me, I'm a food guy, and I absolutely love all that stuff. And it's probably why I, have to wear big 2X shirts right now. Not even like, a normal 2X. Like, I got to look at certain brands right now and go, I don't think that one's going to do me right now.
Boy, we have so much in common, Jason. Similar last names, sizing for clothing. I'm actually an apparel salesman. I work in the team business. Working apparel, uniforms, equipment, and yeah, I know the brands that fit me better than the others. That's for sure.
Yeah, they kind of go and look at the tag and go, nope, well, it's going to fit now. I'm going to wash it once, and that ain't going to be good. Yeah. So we'll wrap things up here, but we'll take a look at what's happening this week in NAIA football. You've got Northwestern taking on Dort. Dort, obviously, a top 25 team. I got them last week at 22. They'll probably move up with some of the losses this week. That's one of those sneaky matchups that Northwestern has to be absolutely careful and go into that game prepared. Otherwise, you've got a good Dort team that could potentially knock them off. And then a game that you had mentioned, Pat, you've got the University of St. Francis going to Marion this week. Marion coming off that big win. St. Francis with a lot to prove potentially in that game. Yeah,
rivalry game. The Cougars have not beaten Marion since 2017. Lot to prove. Ted Karras is back at Marion, who was actually on the St. Francis staff last year, as crazy as that sounds, rivalry school, and was a part of that staff. So it's a really interesting matchup. St. Francis is hot right now. They're getting some health back in that program, found a quarterback that they're going to go with, and has had some success here the last 4 weeks. So I'm actually heading down to Indy this week to see that game. Looking forward to it. It should be a good matchup.
Another game that's a big one to watch this week out in the Frontier Conference, the Blue Blood, as we mentioned, Carroll College. They're taking on College of Idaho, and College of Idaho is a team the last couple of years that has really proven they're a top program in the NAIA. And as Carroll had struggled maybe over the last 10 years, College of Idaho really found its footing. That's a big game out in Montana to potentially help decide who's going to win the Frontier Conference.
It's always good football there. I mean, you've been out there numerous times. I was fortunate enough to coach against Carroll College a few times and play some other teams of that league over the playoffs, the handful of years that I was doing it, and just very well coached, good personnel. There's a lot of big, tough guys out in that area, and it's good football. Yeah, College of Idaho, beautiful campus, beautiful setting of those campuses, just the entire league. It's a cool part of the world, but it's a heck of a ball game on Saturday.
It'll be a good one. Evangel takes on Friends. Friends just had the big upset this week over Southwestern. Now they're going to go against an undefeated Evangel team. And really, I think Friends can show, are they for real? Can we kind of look past that one loss that they've got? And also Evangel having to prove, since they've come out of the hack, we haven't really seen them tested much this year. It could be an interesting game in the KCAC as well. And I'm just running through the top 25. What else we got here? Rocky, Dort, Louisiana Christian. Yes, Louisiana Christian into the NAIA. They take on Ottawa of Arizona. Ottawa just had the big win last week over Arkansas Baptist, 83-0. Louisiana Christian still undefeated. Ottawa, the team kind of leading that conference right now. This is that opportunity now for somebody to step up in the Sooner and kind of take the bull by the horns. You've got Texas Wesleyan in there as well, but the winner of this game could eliminate the other team from contention of possibly making it into the postseason and at one of those at-large bids.
We were mentioning before, like the blue blood teams are back. A lot of them are back, but so good, like you mentioned too. These new programs that are now thrusted in the top 25 and really competing at a high level. It's fun to see, kind of the new blood as well. So, these Florida teams in Louisiana and Arizona, it's cool to see. It's great for NAIA football to see these new programs now begin to flourish.
Yeah, it definitely is. So that's a look at what's happening in the top 25 this week. Next time that we do this, I might actually do some prep and have little slides where those show up on the screen. But like Pat and I kind of decided. So the idea behind this show was like, hey, let's just test to see if like the connection works and if we can make it happen. And then I started putting things together. And then right before we started recording, I told Pat, I'm like, well, what if we just record it and throw it out there? And if it's any good, like we'll just let it play. We'll let people watch it. And now here we are, about 40 minutes later with, I think you could consider our first show. Wow.
The pilot?
The pilot episode, yes. There's always things from the pilot, like there's a weird character that gets introduced and you're like, I wonder what they are. And then second episode, that one's not around. They just got written off the pilot. Fortunately for us, there's only two characters and I don't have anybody else that'll join me, Pat. So
we're characters. We are characters for sure. So we go way back.
Yes. So what, how did the hockey end up today for your boy?
It had a tie today. So, hockey has ties. So it's, it's one of those things where you're a little not satisfied completely, but yeah, it was a good weekend overall, traveling up to Michigan, great state of Michigan for some hockey. So it was good. A lot of fun.
Very nice. That's excellent. And then any big plans for yourself this week? You mentioned going to the football game. Anything else on the schedule?
Not a whole lot. Just kind of being dad and, working in sales like you are and, different world now, but, enjoyable and still follow some football. And yeah, heading to Indy this weekend and taking the kids down and, seeing the Marion St. Francis game. So looking forward to that. Friends with both, obviously very close to the St. Francis guys, but good friends with the Marion guys too. So looking forward to that one.
Yeah, a lot of tie-ins between those programs. And that was one I can remember talking to you about 15, 20 years ago when Marion said they were going to add football. I mean, there was legitimate concern. And granted, you guys have won 2 national championships since then, but there was legitimate concern with, wow, this is going to hurt St. Francis, because you had been able to go into Indianapolis and recruit heavily and win some of those guys out of Indianapolis. And then when Marion started there, all of a sudden, like, you've got some real competition at the NAIA level when you were trying to recruit that area.
No doubt. And I told people this. I still tell people this. The state of Indiana may not have the 75 Division I, college players every single year, but there are numerous Division II and really good NAIA players. So, I think with Marion adding football in the mid 2000s and then with the old Vegas, I'm just not used to saying the Vegas Raiders, but when those guys started football, it put us more on our toes to say we got to be really aggressive in recruiting the state. And it's a very, very good state for this level of football. It's tremendous. And there's hundreds of prospects in this state. So, and both programs really have flourished. St. Francis kind of hit a couple rough spots here the last handful of years, but back on the rise with a winning record right now and challenging these top programs in the Mid-States East here in the next few weeks. And again, we've had some success. Both teams have been at competing at the national level for many years. So, yeah, it's a challenge, and I'm sure there's other programs like that. You see all these Florida schools now. I mean, now there was no Florida schools for how many years, Jay? We were doing this, in NAIA football, and now there's how many?
Yeah.
My goodness,
it was Weber International, and that was the list. That was, and now you've got St. Thomas, now you've got Keiser, now you've got Southeastern, you've got a ton of Florida schools. Florida Memorial, we just talked about. There's a ton of Florida schools. Yeah, Ave Maria. Like, yeah, you used to. That was like the dirty secret in the NAIA was you did a bunch of local recruiting, and then you'd probably take a week or two and go to Florida and try to steal some kids that could play at this level out of that state. And now with all those teams there, you don't do that, and you've really got to focus on things locally. You were mentioning, just how tough around that Indianapolis and Fort Wayne area. You look at Indiana Wesleyan is a really solid program right now. Marion solid, St. Francis, and that's what always intrigues me are these pockets of the NAIA where there's pockets of teams that are good with not like a giant population to draw from. You've got it, kind of over in my area too, with your Morningside and Northwestern and Dort. They're all really solid right now. You've got a couple other teams in the GPAC that are up and coming. Grandview is just down the road in Iowa. It's there's not that much population to draw from. And there's a ton of Division II and Division III schools that are recruiting these same kids. It just always intrigues me when I see these NAIA programs where in an area concentrated, there's a bunch of good schools.
No doubt. And I think those small cities, that's really a secret too. I believe that, like a place like Des Moines, it's very similar to the size of Fort Wayne, for instance. There's a lot of really good, maybe not the huge, like I said, the Big 10 type guys or the Big 12 type players, but there's so many of that Division II, really good, solid NAIA type player available. And I'll tell you, Coach Ryan out of Morningside, again, going battles with those guys over the years, what they do and how they pull guys from that region, guys playing 8-man football. And they're seeing talent, developing players to play at the very top of this level is really impressive. And you see that from so many programs out in that region.
It is just insane, the longevity and the sustained success that Steve Ryan has had at Morningside. Like every great coach has like one or two of those years, 6-4, 5-5, 7-3. I don't think Coach Ryan has ever lost 3 games in a year in a regular season. I think he's finished a year with 3 losses because he lost in the postseason. But like his first year when he takes over the program after it had been basically, demoted out of D2 and they played club level football and they were around 500. Since then, like that program has always been second best, in that conference and has been a contender in the postseason.
Yeah, from firsthand experience, I think we played him, I'm going to say it's 6 times in the playoffs in my time at St. Francis. So 18 years I was there, 6 times playing Morningside. We had in our place back when, like you said, that transition from Division II to NAIA, and they got back in the playoffs in 2004, and we saw them. We gave him a pretty good beating that day, but you could see that progression from that point on. And he saw what it took to play the top-end teams in the NAIA. It didn't take him very long to go compete back at the national level really, really quickly. And we had some tremendous games in the late 2015, 2016, playing some games. The times we won national titles, we had to go through Morningside. And, they were just an unbelievable opponent. I think probably the best team we saw at times, the years we won national titles were Morningside and in the previous rounds. And I was so happy for Coach Ryan and his staff to win one, even though they beat us in the overtime in 2018 out there placing the semifinals. They did get the national championship there that year. So great program. And being in that area, to pull, the players that they do and develop those players, from those communities, like you said, it's a desolate part of the world. I mean, they're getting them to Minnesota and the Dakotas and Nebraska and finding these players and just tremendous NAIA players. I mean, really, really impressed with things they've done there.
How dare you? How dare you call this beautiful land I live in of Fargo, North Dakota, desolate? Oh, wait, no, I watched a dog run away for 3 days the other day. Yes, we ate at the Pizza Ranch.
I love the Pizza Ranch. I mean, who doesn't? Is it the state of Iowa? It's like the restaurant in the state of Iowa, correct?
Yes. Yes.
So Iowa that goes in the Dakotas. The Pizza Ranch to me, I had my first experience on a trip to, I'm trying to think, I think it was maybe going to Sioux Falls in like
Highly
2008. This is my first experience at Pizza Ranch. We played that game in minus 18-degree wind chill.
I was there.
Remember that game? It was like 2008 semifinals at Sioux Falls against Coach DeBoer, Coach Morrell, and just the nightmares of that. I remember my water bottle. I was going up to the press box, that new stadium that was being built in Sioux Falls before the whole transition to still NAIA, obviously. And I'm thinking, man, I'm avoiding this weather. I'm just so on the OC. I'm in the box. It wasn't finished. Open air.
No.
Buddy, my water bottle froze, I'm telling you, in like less than 10 minutes. Like it was in the freezer overnight. I'm thinking, this is what we're in for today, boys. It's going to be one of those days.
That was like they had just built it, and it was all just an open, like concrete area, and there was plywood booths up because we were doing a broadcast there. The University of Sioux Falls was doing a broadcast. You had your radio team there, O coordinators, D coordinators, and they were just plywood. And then just open air and concrete behind you, no windows, wind blowing in on you. And like you said, negative 18 degrees. It was miserable.
I think it was -4. The wind chill got to like -14, -18. We had the longest punt in USF history and the shortest in the same game. It was unbelievable. 88-yard punt, and I think we had like an 8-yard punt. I'm not joking. Look at the history books.
I would not doubt it. Because that was before at Bob Young Field, before they had really anything up out there. There weren't trees or weren't many houses or it was just a wind tunnel up there.
It was a field. Yeah. A beautiful facility. You could see what was going to be eventually, but it was, and again, I prepared. I was, it's going to be cold. I got my coats ready. I got my layers. I'm ready to go, but I'm in the box. I'm not going to have, the extra pair of socks. Oh,
yeah.
Talk about backfire. I had no idea. It wasn't finished.
Yeah. I love it. All right. Well,
those fun stories.
We got plenty more that we'll share probably over the weeks to come. I think we've hit our limit for today. So, Pat, this was fun, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Great catching up, buddy. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we'll do it again. I'll do the official outro. This has been the Victory Sports Network live NAIA football podcast with Donley and Dannelly. We'll see you next time.